Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of the Insightful Podcast, where we explore the people and ideas shaping the future of tourism and hospitality. Pop quiz. So what do you get when you combine a globe-trotting travel specialist, a sustainability and accessibility advocate, and a hospitality educator shaping the next generation? You get today's guest, Dr. Amanda A.J. Templeton, also known as my PhD fairy godmother. Who am I? I'm your host, Dr. Jeremy Fairley, and I couldn't think of a better way to kick things off than with today's episode, driving tourism, sustainability, and education. Dr. Templeton is an associate professor of practice and hospitality management at the University of Louisville, where she's launching an all-new hospitality minor in the College of Business. She's also a seasoned travel specialist, a researcher focused on sustainability and accessibility, and a leader in event operations and academic conferences. From electrifying drive tourism to inspiring students, AJ is helping to reimagine the future of travel. And today, we'll explore her journey, her research, and her vision for a more connected, accessible, and sustainable industry. So sit back, relax, and make sure you take notes from today's episode, because I can neither confirm nor deny that there will be a pop quiz. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Insightful Podcast, a podcast where we explore the people and ideas shaping the future of the hospitality and tourism industry. I'm your host, Jeremy Fairley, PH Dizzle, and today I'm joined by my guest, Amanda A.J. Templeton, who is also known as, and you don't see this coming, my PhD fairy godmother. When was the last time you heard that phrase? Yeah, so for those of you who do not know, AJ and I were both in the tourism program at the Rosen College of Hospitality and Tourism at the University of Central Florida. Woo woo. And she basically got me through the PhD program. So excited to have her. AJ right now is actually the associate professor of practice in hospitality management at the University of Louisville, where she's launching a brand new hospitality minor within the College of Business. So super duper exciting. And she's also a seasoned travel specialist, a researcher focused on sustainability and accessibility, and a leader in event operations and academic conferences. So welcome, AJ, to the show. Golf clap.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Nice. Thank you so much for joining. And for those of you who haven't seen this podcast before, there's a reason for that, because this is the first one. So thanking AJ for just taking the time out, especially right at the beginning or ahead of the academic semester. As we know, it's a little hectic in those weeks leading up to it. So again, thank you for being here. But I wanted to just kind of dive in, just go ahead and jump right into it. So for me also, and you're similar in this, we are both, people who have backgrounds in academia, and industry. So for me, when I was coming into the academia part, I had already had, the industry background, working at DMOs, et cetera. So coming into academia, it was new to me, but my goal, at least coming into it, was I wanted to I had this very altruistic lens at that point. And I want to try to bridge that gap, between academia and the industry. So what inspired you to pursue that career in hospitality education, and how do you stay connected in the evolving event and tourism landscape? Because as we know, academia and industry kind of sit, unfortunately, almost in two completely different barrels, if you will. So how do you bridge that and kind of stay connected?
Yeah, so I kind of stumbled into hospitality. I landed a job selling ski trips. That's how I got my start in the industry, working for a ski tour operator and Alpine Adventures. And was like, oh my gosh, this is an industry. This is a thing. I can do this. I love this. I decided to go back to Rosen for my master's, just to learn a little bit more about hospitality and tourism, because I knew nothing, and loved it, right? And so after my master's, landed a job out west at a small working guest ranch called the Hideout Lodge and Guest Ranch, and loved that, but it was seasonal. And so fell into a teaching job. And I think it was that teaching job where I was just like, oh my gosh, I can teach, and I can be in a classroom, and I can connect students to this industry that showed me what I really wanted to do. And that was the point where I always say, that's where I figured out what I wanted to be when I grew up, was a professor, because I could kind of, like you said, make those connections from one generation and go, hey, there's this whole career field that you could do. And I will say this, I like the work hours of being a professor better than working in the industry, right? Those summer breaks are pretty nice.
I was in the PhD program. I definitely missed those hours where I could wake up, on a Tuesday and not have to really do anything until class at 1:00. And it was basically my schedule, 3 days a week, whether I was teaching or taking class. I missed those hours.
Yeah, Yeah, I love it. I will say, and that was part of the reason I went back for the PhD was I loved teaching in a small program, but I was teaching 5 days a week. I was teaching 40 some credit hours a year.
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, I really can't do this. This isn't sustainable. So having that PhD really made a difference. But yeah, that first job teaching was, I mean, that launched everything really for me to going back to Rosen, getting the PhD. And then, staying connected now, I still sell a ski trip here or there, more so just so that I
Just
know what's
gotta
happening.
gotta keep the fix going, you know.
Yeah, yeah, I know what's happening in the industry. And then, conferences, but more so industry conferences versus the
Hmm.
academic conferences. Getting involved on boards. When I was in Utah, I sat on the Utah Tourism Industry Association board. And so that opens up. So I get to sit in meetings and hear about what's happening, for me in Utah, what's happening in Utah in terms of the industry. And then, what are they hearing at some of the bigger conferences that they go to? And then not only that, but then I can get students involved, right? So
Yeah, I was
it's
gonna say, like, how does that impact your
yeah,
teaching? Yeah.
yeah, it's absolutely been amazing in terms of, hey, we need summer help. Oh, well, I probably have a student for that. Or, we need help at our conference. Hey, I get students that would love to come up and get some experience. And then why don't you come talk to my class? Or can we do a site tour of your property? Right. So it really works all around.
Going back here, because I remember just that moment when I realized I could teach. Not like, like they were gonna assign me something I physically could do, but I was like, oh shit, I'm actually decent at this. What was that moment like for you? Just realizing like, okay, there's these meaningful things happening like to these, and I'm gonna say kids, and I'm gonna date myself, but good lord, I just can't believe I said that. But like, yeah, like you're in there with these kids, and just that moment for me where it's like, all right, I'm giving them meaningful things that they can take into a workplace. Like that was a cool part for me, and that didn't happen immediately. I was scared to death of that first class. It took me a couple of weeks because I taught at like all PhD students at Rosen the events industry, that entry level course. So it took me a couple of weeks to really feel comfortable. But what was that like for you? Just that realization.
So so I coached before I ever started teaching. I
Oh,
coached,
okay.
and when I took that job teaching, it was definitely a trial by fire because I started the job. They're like, "Oh, by the way, the entire curriculum needs to be revised and be ready for accreditation review." And it was like, "Oh, okay." And they just threw it all at me. So I remember calling my dad, having a complete panic attack, and calling my dad and going, "I don't know if I can do this." And my dad was an educator and a coach. He was fantastic in the classroom. And he just goes, "You can do this. You've got this." I'm like, "Okay." And like you, that first day of teaching, which my first day of teaching, I think I had three different classes back to back to back.
Oh, wow.
And I I was sweating. I think I was sick. We're walking into the classroom. Like, I'm just like, oh my
Yeah,
God.
I remember that.
And we were on a quarter system. I think it took me maybe a year
Hmm.
where all of a sudden it was like, oh wait, hold on. I can deliver this content and this isn't as bad as I thought it would. And I'm starting to have fun delivering the content. I still get nervous.
I was
My
gonna
first,
say I still get nervous too.
I still
Yeah.
get nervous. And whether it at SUU here for sure, right? Because this is the new school, like completely new. I'm 100% going to be nervous
Yeah,
that first
because
class.
you don't realize until you've taught in different places, and this was something recent for me. It's like students are different.
Right.
Like because I had taught at, obviously taught at Rosen, then taught, at another place, and students are so different. And I didn't expect it. I just think, especially undergrads, I was thinking, all right, they're all the same. No, it was very different because, at Rosen, there's a lot of like, working students, which was also a huge adjustment for me because like I had to be the professor, but then I also, had to make some kind of, not necessarily concession, but like I had this one kid in a summer course that I taught who worked at a graveyard shift. So he'd work all night, get off work at 8 a.m. and then come to my class at 10. And it's just like, all right, I need to factor that in to some degree. And then just the ones who worked, like I didn't expect to have to do that, but it was interesting because there's these things that you learn. And when I taught somewhere else, very different, completely different student profile. So
yeah, I'll be interested to see what that's like. I got a little bit of a taste of it because I taught online in the spring for
yeah,
Louisville, and so I can already tell it's definitely going to be a little bit of a different student profile. We'll roll with it and we'll see how
yeah.
it goes, and it'll be fun.
Yeah, we'll see when you roll up in your first class and like everyone's drinking bourbon because
That's when you're like, oh yeah, okay, let's do this.
yeah, it's gonna be a class of, it's gonna be a group of upperclassmen because freshmen can't.
Yeah, I can't
Let's
drink
just
it.
change subject before we go down a path that we shouldn't. But cool. But you kind of led into it earlier, just talking about experience and how that experience, when you're in industry and how that leads to teaching. How does that experience in operations and event management shape your teaching?
I think it's given me a really practical and hopefully a kind of a accessible approach to teaching. I try to keep things so that students understand, right? I don't want to go into a class and I don't want to talk down to students.
Yeah.
And two is I also don't want to talk above them, right? And so I think having that industry experience helps me to keep in mind who's in front of me, right? So like who's my
Yeah.
audience, the customer, or what, however you want to, and that's a whole different tangent about our students, customers. But that same kind of thought of who's in the classroom and how I present it is going to make such a difference for how they receive the information. And
Yeah.
so I try to be really thoughtful too about my assignments. I really don't want to assign busy work, so to speak. I've actually gotten away from quizzes and exams.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah, I don't feel like, sure, I can assess the knowledge, but I can assess that in other ways, right? And so I can use case studies, or I can use even just some of the discussion questions in the back of the text where it's more of, okay, go out and do this research. Now, how does that relate to something that you've experienced or done, or put yourself in a manager's position? How would you approach this set of, whatever the scenario is? Because I really want them to bridge that gap between theory and application. And I
Hmm.
also want to do it in a way that like the topics are fun. I think a case study that I've used, it was on green casinos in Las Vegas are pretty sustainable. Students always have fun with that case where they're just like, oh, this was really cool. And they start examining different hotels and the different sustainability measures. And they're just like, oh, I had no idea. Right. So those are the kinds of things that I think being in the industry has given me in terms of just approaching teaching.
Yeah, and it also has to be fun for you because it's way more fun grading, something where you get to see them actually think as opposed to, well, I mean, some quizzes and stuff and tests are, auto graded, but I like the discussions. Like I like to be able to see, sometimes you can just tell, like, especially if you're teaching online, you don't have that face to face. Cause I've definitely had those moments where it's like, I'm looking at the student and I'm explaining something. And I remember this one time I could literally see the wheels turning, like, like she just got it. And that was a proud teacher moment for me. I was like, I impacted one student. The rest of you are going to fail, but this one, I got this one. And I like to do like current event articles. I spend a good amount of time before each class finding a current event article, and whether I get a chance to discuss it in class or like in a discussion, like just giving that real world thing, like to try to balance that academic, the book stuff, which is meaningful. But like when you get into the workplace, like our real world examples in these case studies are gonna like it's just that material is just gonna relate so much more. So
Yeah,
nice.
it makes all the difference. And I tell students too, I'm like, because they'll go, this wasn't in the PowerPoint. I'm like, yeah, because it hit my desk this morning and I threw it in there because it was a perfect, like
Yeah.
this is what's happening in the industry and it lines up perfectly with what we're talking about in class, right?
I have a disclaimer usually in my syllabus somewhere that's like, it doesn't have to be in the PowerPoints for it to be on the quiz. You need to be paying attention. It could be a guest speaker. It could be something I randomly said, a joke
Mhm.
about a movie that related. Like you need to be paying attention because I'm just gonna throw it in there just to see who's paying attention. So It's always good to like, get those little surprises, but they're there for a purpose. It's not like a gotcha type thing. It's like, I want to know, are you paying attention? And not so much are you paying attention? Are you absorbing this content, especially as it relates to the industry things? One thing that I haven't had a chance to talk to you, I definitely wanted to learn more about because I had actually gone down this path a couple of years ago. It was actually before I even was it before I was in the PhD program? But I went to the University of Tampa in my undergrad, and, University of South Florida is there. They have a hospitality program. So I was approaching the University of Tampa about, potentially bringing, on a hospitality course, and dare I say advising them. I was just showing up and telling them what I wanted to do, even though they didn't ask for it. I'll pick it back up one day. But what's it like, developing a hospitality minor, and essentially like you're at the ground level, and that's got to be cool. Like, I feel like that's got to be cool just because you're, 5-10 years from now, you'll see it, just kind of grow and take these steps. So what's that like?
So one, it's a little terrifying, right? Like,
Yeah.
it not in a bad way, not in a bad way, but it's also really exciting. It is. And I think what makes the program here so exciting for me is that the industry came to the university and they said, we want this program. And there are places that you go where you're trying to forge connections with the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And here, the industry is right there going, we want this program. How do we support you? Tell us how to help you, right? And so that is super exciting. But it's also a lot of pressure. And
Yeah.
And having, I've revised a program, but there's a lot of pressure on building something and hoping that, I don't mess it up too badly, I guess, for future me or future.
I was about to say, we tried this once and she ruined it. We're never doing it again. It's like, oh, no pressure at all, AJ. No pressure.
Yeah. It's like I was talking with a friend the other day and I said, it's like, in athletics, you're leveling up, right? So I'm going from being a varsity athlete to being a collegiate athlete, or it probably maybe more collegiate to like semi-pro at this point, right? And so it's that level up, and there's definitely a learning curve, and I know that I'm going to misstep along the way. That's par for the course.
Yeah, I know it sounds so cliche, but like you always. And I used to hate it when people said this to me, but it makes so much sense. Like, as an adult paying bills, like you learn more from your failures than you ever will from like your successes. And it's so true. And I feel like if that gives you some comfort, I don't know if it does, but like knowing that you'll learn so much more from those fails. Hopefully there aren't many or any at all.
Yeah, I hope that, they're really small blips in this, but yeah, it's really exciting, and parts of it, the classroom part, like that part doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
That part is, and as we step into a classroom, that's our world. And we are the commanders of that universe and there. Yep. And I can be who I am. I can put on that show. I can have fun. I can
Whenever I would get nervous about teaching, I would always remind myself that no one in this classroom knows more than you. Like, cause I would get nervous so often. And that's what you have to tell yourself is like, unless there's another person who has a PhD, who's just learning the hospitality industry. And even then you don't know this as much as I do. And even if you do, I'm the professor. Like, right. You gotta go through me to pass this class. Yeah. So, yeah.
So that part of it, I'm like, that's good. It's the industry engagement. It's trying to get more people on board. It's figuring out what's a program director and what does that look like. And I've got such great support though that I'm excited to learn. I want to learn. Correct me where and that's, you come into it, you just like, this isn't all on me. And I think that's what I just keep reminding myself. And and when we talked about that first teaching job, my dad's words have come back to me quite a bit on days where I'm a little like, what have I done? You have a meeting, your brain's ready to explode, Yeah. And it's me, I go, no, you can do this. And so I attribute a lot of that to Rosen and the rigor of the PhD program that Rosen.
I love that very safe word. The rigor.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll just say that beat down that we took. No, I mean, I'm just joking, but hey, in many
That's
cases it kind of was.
growing quite possible.
But yeah, it's like if I got through this, the rest of it's gonna be fine. So yeah, and again, I didn't have an appreciate for that then, but I do now because it prepared us for so much more. And situations like the one you're in now, where you're building something from scratch, you're kind of right there at the ground level. So the while it is daunting in many ways, it's like I've gotten through other things related to this and you know come out on the other side of it. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right, now just because we are speaking of PhDs, because we are boring PhD people, let's talk research.
Oh boy.
Yes. Cue research music. I don't know where that's coming from. I'll figure that out at a later date. But yeah, so your research focuses on tourism, sustainability, and accessibility, topics that are increasingly relevant. I remember being in the DMO space where you'd mention those words in a room and people would be like, what is that? And it wasn't really that long ago. I mean, I've kind of seen the change from the sustainable tourism. There's conferences specifically on sustainable tourism and more diversity and inclusive type topics. But can you share your thoughts specifically, because your dissertation was very sustainability focused on electrifying drive tourism in U.S. national parks, and just kind of, I hate to bring back memories of dissertations, but go. Wait, and actually in honor of your dissertation defense, we should take a shot. I got water here, but yeah, was it tequila? Okay, I remember.
It was, but we can do a cheers with water.
Yeah, we'll do a cheers with water. This is where we are. No more tequila for us. We're in our water stage.
Okay, we're adults here.
For the longest, the little tequila bottle had a little straw hat, and I kept that straw hat for years. I just lost it. Probably most recently we removed it. I just had it. There was no specific reason. I just had it for the longest. But random memories.
Memories. Yeah, I've got to be honest and say that I had fun with my dissertation. And I think I think I'm an outlier.
No, I did too. Because you love the topic. It's so much easier when you love the topic.
Yeah. And my dissertation was fully qualitative, which, Horizon was the first. And so I spent a couple months just talking to fleet managers and park rangers. And to me, that was so much more fun than crunching numbers.
Yes, than an SPSS.
Exactly, or looking at models, or so I really loved it, and I was always surprised at the end of an interview that I would do where somebody's going, "Hey, when you finish this, could you send me the finished document?" And
Yeah.
Really, you want to read my dissertation, really? And I did. I totally shared that quite a bit. And obviously, got the publication out of it, and what I got out of that, I think of that as looking at electric vehicles in the park from the park and from that supply side. And one is that there's an opportunity in absolutely every park to utilize an electric vehicle in some way, shape, or form, right? It doesn't have to be the entire fleet. It could be one car. It could be in a golf cart type deal. But there's some way that it can absolutely be utilized. And another thing I saw, and it was kind of one of the biggest inhibitors as to why not all parks have electrification in their fleet, and it goes back to the operational standpoint of policies and procedures. Parks are pretty regulated in terms of
just legal liability too, probably.
Their vehicles from and how they can spend the money and the codes that are associated with different types of electric vehicles, and can the money be spent there, and so what can we use funding for or not for? There's just a lot of policies there that were a park like, yeah, I would love to use this type of electric vehicle, but they can't afford it. They can't get it. It's not coded in one way, shape, or form for funding. And then the other part of it was that it really takes a true champion within the park or within a park district to really drive the type of efforts that needed For honestly, for anything, right? So be it electric vehicles, be it solar, be it accessibility information within a park, you've got to have a champion on staff to help drive that, whatever that is, through in the park. Otherwise, I mean, and especially now, parks are understaffed, they're
Yeah.
underfunded, they've got a
Hurting.
lot on their plate. And so if someone isn't really vested, it's just not at the top of a priority list. And it, that that's not right or wrong. It just kind of it is what it is.
And I would imagine that person or persons varies from one park to the next. Like at one place, you might have someone who's a super champion, and then the other place, someone who doesn't even probably hasn't even heard the concept of an electric vehicle. I mean, there's just like such a like a divide there, I can imagine. And then also, like I'm actually shocked to hear that. I would figure there would be, I don't know if the word is regional, but maybe like someone at a higher level who would be making those decisions and dictating down to the parks, for lack of a better way to say that. But it sounds like a lot of that is happening at the park level.
It is when you have regional directors, right?
Hmm.
So, and it does. A lot of it will determine, who's in that regional director position. But you've got the park level where if they really want to do something, they'll start championing it, and they'll push it up, and they'll bring it up to a regional director and be like, hey, this, oh, here's funding, and they'll do kind of the research and background on it, and try to get things passed. But so it's a little bit of both, right? Ultimately, things do have to go back to DC and get
Yeah.
like final approvals on things. And so that's where they saw during COVID where there's a gap in thing, this is the policy, but on the ground, folks are going, yeah, that we do not have time to wait for you to make a decision, because this is happening here and now, and we've got to figure out something for here. So it's a balance. My hats are off to a lot of directors working in the parks on how they're going. Just a lot of changes.
Yeah. And similarly, or kind of along the same sustainable tourism track, like talking about like nature-based tourism and how you see that evolving in the next decade. And again, from my experience, it's definitely evolved a lot. And I think it was one of those weird instances where I feel like to some degree we had COVID to blame because, especially like at a DMO level, it was hard or almost impossible to promote things that were going on indoors. I remember I was working at a company at the time, really heavy in the COVID, that we curated like attractions and park passes. And a lot of those passes were really starting to become heavily focused on outdoor things. So we definitely saw like, and again, I guess you can say a positive outcome of COVID is just, you know, how much, outdoor tourism and nature tourism was just kind of put at the forefront. So how do you see that just continuing to evolve? We've already seen some evolution of it, but
Yeah, it's definitely, and I was in Utah during COVID, and of course we saw a boom in regional visitation, even just in-state visitation
yeah,
to public lands, and some of that's tapered off. But I think that we're seeing, one is that we did create more champions for our natural resources, right? And in this case,
yeah,
your public lands. And we're starting to see a lot more lodging based nature type locations, right? And so everything from really high end glamping, like Open Sky Zion, if you want to see a really high end glamping company, they've done an amazing job, to your big brands like Marriott, right? They've now got
hmm
postcard cabins, right? That's been popping up on my Instagram quite a bit.
what's it
Where
called? Cabins? Something?
postcard cabins,
Postcard cabins.
postcard cabins, yeah. And I remember a couple of months ago having a conversation with somebody, and they're like, "Yeah, no, the outdoors, people aren't all going back to urban destinations. If anything, your Hiltons, your Marriotts, they're really starting now to hit those outdoor locations. It's just a different lodging concept that matches
Yeah,
that, because we're seeing that people want to engage with the outdoors. They just don't necessarily want to do it in a tent, right? Or
that's your boy right here.
right? Or you've got people who they've been tenting, right? And they've done the backpacking and they've done the tenting. And now they've reached an age and an income level where they're like, I mean, I can, but I don't really want to. But I still want to be a little bit more remote, but with a nice bed and
Yeah.
with a nice shower and with some air conditioning. I don't necessarily need my Wi-Fi. I'd like to disconnect from that, but I want all these other amenities. So I think it's going to be interesting to see where that line is of being in nature without overdeveloping nature, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And you're talking about Wi-Fi. We went to camping. Well, got a cabin. And it wasn't necessarily camping, but in like northern Georgia. That's kind of on the border between northern Georgia and South Carolina. And went to this cabin, and I just remember being just so mad that there was no Wi-Fi. And it was like, oh, well, you're supposed to disconnect. No, I need Wi-Fi. Like I'm disconnecting by being out here in the middle of nowhere. And I'm pretty sure that's a mountain lion that I just heard, like, outside. I need some Wi-Fi. And they only had a DVD player. And I was like, I need to be able to watch TV. So it was like 3 days of it was just too much nature for me. Like I wanted to be there and I want to be in nature, but I need my Wi-Fi. Like I want to be in nature, but still watch Netflix. That's my middle piece. But yeah, I won't say it was a miserable 3 days, but it was just like, oh. And then I left a bad review. I'll be honest. I left a bad review on that Airbnb. So I was just like, where's the Wi-Fi? And then the host was trying to explain to me, well, it's, you're in the cabin in the woods. I was like, I don't care. I need my Wi-Fi. When I come back, if I come back, I need some Wi-Fi. But that's just my bouginess, if you will.
Yeah,
But
it's more of a spectrum. I think it used to
yeah,
be that it was either high end or like it was here or here, right? You had
yeah,
everything or you had nothing. And now we're starting to see a little bit. I mean, even state parks. There's some states where the state park model is different. They have more resort style state parks, and those are on a spectrum within the state. And being out west, that's not a thing. I mean,
mm,
not to say you don't have your camp parks and lodges. Come like Kentucky. I think Florida was trying to do it, but Kentucky has where it's essentially a resort, but it's a state park as well, right? And so that,
yeah.
um,
It's right up my alley.
yeah, yeah, and I know you have your purists who are like, that's not communing with nature, but at the same time, if you're getting people to appreciate on some level the outdoors, so that when
Yeah,
bills come up, that, and we kind of just saw it. It's a big bill that tried to get passed about selling off. I think it was like 2 to 3 million acres of federal lands, and people just went no, right? And that's everybody from your outdoorsmen to maybe it's people like yourself who you want your cabin with your Wi-Fi, but you still
yeah.
want the opportunity to have that cabin. So there's definitely opportunities for everyone. It'll just be interesting as to where things land on that.
Yeah, you're promoting Kentucky tourism because now I want to go to a park or to a state park and do my luxury thing, like, my resort thing. I got to have my robe in the cabin, or
Your
my
slippers.
special soap. Yeah, or my slippers. Yeah, 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 yeah. Like I need my bougie lifestyle, but in a cabin. So that's my middle ground. And I'm sure that there are plenty of people out there like that, that who are similar to me. So it's about understanding the marketplace, and what people want and sort of building to that. So that's cool to see just in terms of the growth of it. Cause, a couple of years ago, and it's always good to see these evolutions, but back in my day, like these weren't things. Yeah, I'm going to jump around topics here, if you don't mind, but just talk about mentorship and future leaders. And we kind of went down this path a little earlier, talking about teaching, but I'm sure a cool part about being at the ground level for this new program, you're getting to shape the next generation of hospitality professionals. I always thought that, and people ask me like if I love teaching or if I always wanted to be a teacher. It's like, no, absolutely not. It was the last thing on my mind. But, there is this really cool part about it where I would just think about, all right, there's someone in my classroom and I've taught somewhere between 500 and 600 students, in my time. There is a GM of a hotel in there. There is a board chair for Visit Orlando probably in there. And at some point I can go back to him and be like, hey man, I need a job. I'm joking or something. But, like the fact that they were there, like in your classroom and you a very small part of their life, they probably spend an hour, or hour and 15 minutes, I think class time is run, for once a week. We do. So not a huge ton of time, and especially for me, whenever some of them, because I have students who've come back and taught and who have guest lectured, and that is probably the coolest moment whenever I see it's like, wow, you're out here doing like amazing things, and I'm going to take all the all the credit for that, even though you barely spend any time with me. But talk about that. What advice do you give to students who want to make a meaningful impact in tourism, and just kind of how you see that next generation of hospitality professionals and your role in making sure they get to where they need to be?
Yeah. It's funny you said about the teaching, because I did my master's and I was like, yeah, I'm not doing a PhD. Like, that looks miserable. What's wrong with these crazy?
Yeah.
And
I said the same thing.
Mentor, Dr. Persa, he just kept telling me, he's like, you would be a great professor. And my dad backed him up, and I was just like, you two are crazy, And of course, bounced forward, and I love it. And it really is anytime a student succeeds, or somebody emails me or writes me a thank you note, and I think this is just that selfish part of, I geek out. Like, I'm so excited to see the wins for the students and to hear about those wins, and it's
that's a nerd out moment for sure.
It is, and it's one of those where, like, it is such an honor to be just a small piece of their journey.
Yeah. I got a handwritten note one time from a student that was on my desk, and it was on nice paper and had really good penmanship. And I remember I posted it on Facebook. I was so proud. I was like, the world needs to see this letter that I got from the student about, just some advice that I'd given her, like, over the course of her being in my class. But like, that's just, that stuff is just, it's really cool.
Pinnacle. Now, absolutely, I love it when they end up at places where I'm like, so how about our hotel discount? Let your property. And I'm shameless with that with some of them too, or especially if they were a TA or something, where I'm like, no, I really think that at this point I should be getting this discount. I'll tell you.
But you're not joking, but it's okay.
Yeah, no, I'm turning it down when it comes my way. But, I think for a lot of students, it's, listen, learn, get involved. We bring in guest speakers, and, I know you do too. And I do site tours with students, and I just go, be a part of the industry. Listen to what's going on around you at these conferences that you're going to, or at these network events that you're going to, and then ask a question, speak up, get involved. When there's mentorship opportunities, take advantage of those mentorship opportunities, especially when they're coming through the school, because I think many students, they really don't take full advantage of it, where alumni want to come back and they want to give back. Our industry, which this is what I love about our industry, loves providing opportunities to students. They love it, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think enough students really take advantage of that. And it's like, no, this person is giving you a piece of your wisdom.
Or they try to do it. They try to do it when it's too late. Like, you just graduated. It's just like, I'm happy to see that you're trying to do this now, but like, it's a scramble now because you graduated, you got to get a job. Whereas had you been doing this, and I've had to have this conversation, it's like, these are things that you probably should have been doing, maybe a year out from graduation, if not the entire time, just networking, going to these events, asking your professor, if they know someone who can, kind of mentor or help you along. So there's a time frame to some degree.
Yeah. And even, bringing in guest speakers, I always say to students, come up with 2 questions that are intelligent questions. I said, because that makes you stand out and you have no idea what you're going to learn from them, and you don't know. And I've had quite a few. I think I can think about a couple of students over the years, probably more than a couple, but especially recent years, where I've had industry professionals come up and go, who was that student that asked that question?
Mm-hmm.
I want to get to know them a little bit better. Make sure you refer them to me. And it's as simple as asking the right question, being engaged instead of being on, Instagram
Yeah.
or the kids are on the Be Reels or, whatever they're on these days.
I don't know. I have no idea. I'm so
I,
out of touch with that,
I,
which is weird because I work in marketing and I'm so out of touch.
yeah, I joke with them in class. I'm like, the snapbooks and the Insta chats and whatever you guys are doing. And it goes, there's so many opportunities. And I don't know, as I think back to my bachelor's degree, I can't think of a single guest speaker during the course of my 4-year degree.
Oh, yeah. You know what?
Like,
I don't remember any either.
I can think
That's crazy. That just occurred to me.
like I can remember 2 off-site visit opportunities that were extra credit, but I can't think of a single guest speaker. And so I think that it's awesome that, that.
I can't either. That just occurred to me.
Yeah.
Like when I'm thinking back to it, like, no, not one.
Mhm.
Not. There's nothing that's jumping off the top of my head at all. And if I'm really deeply thinking, I don't remember there ever was a guest speaker. I had professors who had industry experience, which is always great, but like I don't remember a guest speaker at all. So yeah, and I try to have 2 to 3 per semester. Like I try to have a minimum at least 3, and I'm disappointed in myself if I can't get at least 3 people, over the course of the semester because I want, different perspectives, different people to come in and just have them see something different and ask questions.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember, so I did a site tour with a group of students, and I remember going out of my way to one student, like, "You're coming on this tour." He's like, I don't know, Templeton. I don't really know if I want to do this. I'm like, "You need to come on this tour." And I basically bullied this, and Kyle is amazing. And I essentially bullied him into going on this tour. And
I love how he calls you Templeton.
yeah, I tell them they can use my last name or they have to put doctorate professor on it. Like we can do this or out. And just because I knew he would vibe, he would be perfect for that for the property management company. And at the end they were throwing around, yeah, if anyone wants an internship or they'd never had an intern before, and I just shy of shoving this kid, go talk to them. Landed an internship with them, landed a full-time job afterward.
Yeah.
And it opened up all these doors. And it was like, it's that easy, right? It's when the industry wants to engage and when they're like, yes, give us people, we will learn them.
Yeah.
It's that easy. And Kyle has done absolutely amazing, really proud of where he is and what he's done and just taking advantage of the different connections.
Now, the most important question that I have out of all that is, are you getting a fee from Kyle, like 10%, for pushing him in that direction and him getting a real full-time job? Because I feel like there's a referral fee situation that should be there. So you don't have to say yes or no, but I'm just saying.
Yeah,
like,
I don't think
Kyle, if you're watching, 10%
right,
founder's fee.
10%. I'll say this about a lot of my students. I get to keep in touch with them.
Yeah.
And that is so cool. All right. I think it's so neat to get the wedding invitations and for them to go,
snap.
yeah,
You got a wedding invitation.
I get wedding invitations, man. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Going to one in
This is
October.
me.
Actually. Yeah, I get to go
I'm
to a
not
wedding.
there yet. Damn. I'm slipping. I'm not there yet. I haven't gotten a wedding
Of a
invitation.
student that I had in Ohio, and that probably makes me really old. But
My favorite thing that I've ever gotten from a student was a Chick-fil-A sandwich meal that she brought to me in class. But a wedding invitation is a whole nother step up from that.
There you go.
So, a Chick-fil-A wedding invite.
Like,
Chick-fil-A.
yeah, see? So,
Yes, and this portion of the podcast is sponsored by the fine folks at Chick-fil-A. Just it's not. It's really not. But.
Where's our lemonade?
Yeah.
So
Eat more chicken. Yes.
we're eating more chicken.
And follow-up question or kind of a segue. There's two questions here that I want to, and maybe we'll get to both of them. But what skills or mindsets do you think are most critical for these students and the future leaders? Like for me, I just feel like it's networking because if I think about just my journey, I've never gotten a job because I applied for it and got it. I've always gotten a job because I knew someone who, respected my work, who referred me. Or who just knew of my work and just, but that was due to a large part to just networking opportunities and asking a question in a class. And after the class is over, going up to that speaker and saying, can I get your business card or something like that? So for me, it's just, which is weird for me because I'm extremely shy, but like in those moments, I feel like, I don't know, like the shyness kind of went away and I could just network or in that moment do that. But love your thoughts on that.
I think adaptability, and I definitely don't disagree with what you said about networking, but I would add that I think that adaptability is a really big deal. And I think that for myself, right? The ability for me to kind of just to change as things are changing. I think COVID really showed us from an industry perspective, things can change very quickly.
Yes, in an instant.
And I remember watching and talking to industry professionals around me, and they're just like, yeah, we can't market at all like we used to. We were almost doing on the fly marketing based on what's happening, right? And it was the people who were thinking on their feet, that were adapting. They're obviously utilizing that foundation of knowledge that they have, but they weren't stuck in this is what we've always done.
Yeah.
Right? They weren't stuck in that mindset.
I saw that too, just being on the vendor side and having to work with clients and, just different opposite ends of the spectrum. You got some who just really struggled with the fact that they couldn't do the same things that they've done every day. But then you saw some that just embraced it, specifically the ones who were just doing a phenomenal job of promoting outdoor experiences. Some were for destinations may not even been known for outdoor experiences, but like they got creative with it and they figured it out and they've been able to kind of move that forward. So yeah, that adaptability, that's good, individually and organizationally. So sorry I interrupted.
No, it's huge. And the interesting thing too about networking that I tell students is network, but do it in a way that works for you, right? So you want to be genuine with those connections. And it's interesting to watch different students kind of listen to that and then take that and adapt it to themselves. And I have a young man who really, when he started the program, I think he was just like, no, I want to do like Disney. And, and now he's a community and partner relations director for a DMO. And you want to talk about somebody who he got in there and he pushed himself and he would reach out and he used those connections and contacts and just impressed the people around him. But it was genuine. Right. And so, I think that a lot of students who are a little bit more introverted, I'm a little bit more on the introverted scale. If we were to do the spectrum, I'm a little bit more on that introverted side. But if I get to know you in a one-on-one, and we start talking, absolutely, let's, we'll have now we can start networking. And then it's, oh, hey, maybe I have this person that, I think you really should meet this person. And now the connection flows. And I think it's a better way of approaching it than maybe that old mindset of, hello, who are you? What can you do for me? This is what I can do for you. And
especially people in this industry will see right through that. People in this industry will see right through that. It'll happen so much faster for you if you're genuine and like they can see it that way. Whereas like we know, and pardon my language here, but this is an adult show. Put the kids to bed. They can tell when you're bullshitting, and so I can totally see that adaptability, but then also like that genuine part of it.
Yeah. Hey, you.
And then we've got like 10 minutes left here. We're approaching an hour. This is
oh my gosh,
podcast is a wild success, and I'm going to make billions from it. And you get 10% of that, just referral fee for being the first guest.
Perfect.
So someone, like we talked about earlier, being deeply rooted in research and practice, what trends or innovations, what gets you excited about, the future of tourism and the future of hospitality and tourism?
So my next research stream, which is one
Her
I've
next,
actually, my
I'm,
next
I'm looking at the
research,
camera. I'm looking
oh,
at the camera that doesn't exist. Her
right,
next research
exactly.
stream, because
To
there's
the
so many.
birds listening out there, accessibility really. I'm excited that, and Dr. Alan File, who we've both had, is, he's a leader in this field. And I remember that so I worked with Dr. Denver Sievert
Mhm.
as a master student, young PhD. I don't know, it all blurs, it all just blurs. And doing a
We still
paper,
have PTSD from it. It's fine.
they're just definitely a little bit, yes.
Someone the other day that just graduated, I was like, congratulations. You're still going to have the nightmares for about 2 years. So just go ahead and get ready for it. I have maybe one every 6 months now. That's where I am. You may have cycled off of them completely because
I think I've said
you
no, but I
finished before,
totally
but
panic attacks of like, oh my
mm,
gosh, I was supposed to upload this and now I can't grab. Oh wait, no, I'm fine. Like I still have those panic attack moments where, oh my gosh, I didn't register for whatever.
I have the same recurring one where like I owe Murphy something. And then I wake up and I'm like, you graduated, right? Like you don't owe Murphy anything ever again. Shout out to Dr. Kevin Murphy. Sorry, I interrupted again, but
No. Well, anyway, I'd had an experience on a cruise and interacted with these really great guests at a chef's tasting table. And they were part of the deaf community and they had an interpreter with them. We had an amazing conversation at that table. And one of the things that they brought to my attention is that if, customer service is lacking for those invisible disabilities. Right. And so you have all this ADA
yeah.
stuff and yeah,
Yep.
but in terms of just those people skills and those soft skills, there's this huge gap, right? And they were saying, even coming on the cruise and having the interpreter, they get tired and they wear out, and we don't have someone else that we can switch out with because the service only sends like two people to take care of or assist. I think it was like 6 or 8 people, right? And I remember that sticking with me. And so now, because I do love, I'm a bit of a national park nerd, as it were, really looking more at accessibility in natural parks and in public lands and for persons with disabilities. And so, yeah, we have wheelchair accessible bathrooms, but what does that actually mean? Where is that in the park, right? Like X
Mm.
Trail is accessible to wheelchairs, but is it? What else is happening? Why do some parks have really great maybe signage and others don't? Or they say on the website that, yeah, we've got accessible trails, but then you get there and you're like, yeah, but I need a special wheelchair in order to
Yeah.
access that trail. Death Valley National Park has done a great job with a whole sensory kit for guests with neurodivergent issues on that spectrum, so that they can read through and really understand how best to engage in the park for them, so that they get the best experience out of it. And you're seeing more and more organizations, culture cities, and travelability, Real the World,
Yeah.
that are, I think, they've been there, but now they're really more on the forefront and they're giving presentations at conferences. And so that's exciting that,
Or in the case of travelability summit, like it is the conference. It is the summit. Yeah.
yeah, and
I've known Jake for a number of years. Jake Steinman, the founder, and yeah, it was amazing to see just the growth of that and kind of an awareness about persons with disabilities and and thinking about that from a travel perspective.
so I think that's exciting that I think it's the one time that academia and the industry are actually moving together at the same
Yeah.
speed versus a lag time there. And so there's a lot of opportunities there. And I hope that it means good things for not just the people in that, but for them to be able to travel with their families and to have an easier time having these amazing experiences wherever it
Yeah.
is that they're going to go.
Yeah, and just not feeling like there's a limitation on it, or of any kind. So being able to take that vacation and take your family, I think that's supremely important. I had an opportunity to work on a project. I was working with an advertising agency for Visit Florida. I know I'm drawing a blank on the name, but I learned a lot about just that entire space and persons with disabilities and traveling and getting around. And we kind of focused the entire project around, more of a Florida health and wellness perspective, but it was probably the most meaningful project that I've ever worked on, like easily. And I've done some cool stuff, but I think back, or I watch those videos every now and then, and just to hear the stories, that was, the stories for just a lot of these brave people who are doing things that I couldn't do, like scuba inks. There's this one guy, I believe his name was Ronnie, and Ronnie was amazing, but Ronnie was a master level diver or a scuba diver, and he didn't have the use of his legs, and it's just like, I have the use of my legs and I can't swim. And like, he is deep sea diving and just like, but it was just a very, very meaningful project, and it opened my eyes up, especially like, to tourism related things like that in our space. So completely on the same page with you, just in terms of where it is and where it's going. And it's great to have organizations and people out there like Jake and Dr. File too, because he's definitely jumped onto it in the last couple of years. But all right, we have come to the end. 58 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
I'm proud of us. Didn't I just go by like so quick? This was just like
if we wouldn't get 30.
Yeah. I was not that I was looking at the clock, but I was kind of glancing down the clock. I was like, we're at 30. And I was like, all right, let's see if we can make 30. But yeah. But thank you so much. Like, I'm super excited for you again, just being at the ground level, and congratulations on the new gig and a new city. And I like to, just express my condolences for your liver in advance with all the bourbon that you're probably going to be drinking. Don't go to any bars with Gathan, because Gathan, I think he's part of like a bourbon club. I think he's actually part of a bourbon club.
I'll have to get him on that, because he didn't bring that up when we talked.
No. He knows his bourbon. I remember seeing it somewhere in one of the posts, but he is a member of a club. Let's just leave it at that.
All right,
so
it's really wild how small our industry is. I mean,
yeah.
And I tell students all the time, I'm like, don't burn bridges. You have no idea how small this industry is. And it's true. It's just awesome to be able to make all these connections. And yeah, I'm super excited to explore bourbon, and there's a great food scene here. And
I've heard the good things about the food scene too. Yeah. And I feel like they've got a new or renovated convention center within the last couple of years. So just in terms of the growth that city is going to make, just in terms of being able to host larger groups, and how that, amplifies, the growth of the city. I think it's a cool time to be there, is kind of what I'm rambling on and getting, but yeah, I love like seeing your work. And again, like, one of the things that I always wanted to do with this PhD was to bridge that gap between industry and academia. And it's so cool that you have an opportunity to do that. So thank you again for joining. Thank you for being the first guest. If anybody wants to reach out to
L's up there.
Throw the L's up. If anybody wants to reach out to Amanda, you can reach her at amanda.templeton@louisville.edu. And if I can figure out, and master my post-production skills, I'll put links at the bottom for everybody.
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn as well.
Ain't making no promises on that, but thank you so much again. We'll have to have you back for another podcast. I got to get through like 10 of these, and then I'll cycle back, and this will be like version 2. This will be after the year of the program. So let's go ahead and pencil that in.
There we go.
I'll send you.
As your PhD fairy godmother, I am here to assist you however I can.
Yes, and whenever this blows up and CBS or whoever buys it, I give you 5%. We're going to go down from 10.
Okay.
But, 5% of $1 billion is a lot of money. So
I'll take it.
That buys a lot of bourbon. So
that probably buys state distillery.
Yeah, that's too much bourbon. Yeah, we don't want to do that to your liver, but
probably not.
All right, but thank you so much again, and guys, thank you for joining in, and we'll see you on the next episode. I don't know who the guest is going to be, but it'll be somebody not as cool as AJ, but we'll find some more guests for you. But thanks, AJ. Have a good rest of your evening.
All right. Thank you.
And that wraps up the very first episode of the Insightful Podcast. A huge thank you to our guest, Dr. Amanda A.J. Templeton, for sharing her passion, her research, and her vision for the future of tourism, sustainability, and education. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming episodes, where we'll continue exploring the people and ideas shaping the tourism and hospitality industry. You can connect with AJ on LinkedIn or by email at amanda.templeton@louisville.edu. And as always, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep moving tourism forward. Until next time, I'm Dr. Jeremy Fairley, and this has been the Insightful Podcast.